that Kim Kardashian is a prostitute, and I'm not going to edit this opinion.
Federal RICO I'm about to drop. Anybody know Kim and cool with Kim? They need to tell her now. The rain is coming.
But here's what nobody is connecting yet. The truth always comes out. Sometimes it takes years. Sometimes it takes federal investigations. Sometimes it takes a podcast host with nothing to lose, pulling back the curtain on the most protected family in American entertainment. And sometimes the truth comes from the least expected places, like a comedian who spent 2 hours in a Department of Justice reading room staring at 3 million pages of evidence that changed his entire perspective on, who was really running the world. I'm talking about the Kardashians tonight. And according to Joe Rogan, what he's seen in the Epstein files doesn't just implicate them, it buries them. It doesn't just suggest they were involved. It paints a picture of a family that wasn't just present in Epstein's network, but actively operating at its center. This isn't speculation anymore. This isn't conspiracy theories floating around on Twitter. This isn't some random YouTube video making wild claims for clicks. This is documented. This is real. This is in federal files. This is in victim complaints. This is in the statements of people who were inside the operation. And the Kardashians, they're next on the list. Let me take you inside what Rogan uncovered and what happens when the most powerful men in the world start naming names. Because here's what the mainstream media doesn't want you to know. This story isn't just about the Kardashians. This story is about how the elite protect each other. This story is about how money buys silence. This story is about how fame becomes a shield against accountability. Until now.
Kris Jenner wasn't just aware of what was happening, she orchestrated it. She pushed her daughters onto that island.
Kris Jenner, the woman who built a billion-dollar empire on her daughters' bodies and scandals, didn't just allow her daughters to get involved in Epstein's operation. She didn't just turn a blind eye. She was the architect. She positioned them as party favors. She set them up to service wealthy, powerful men in exchange for money, connections, and fame. This wasn't some accidental exposure to a criminal network. This was a calculated business decision. This was Kris Jenner doing what Kris Jenner does best, monetizing her daughters. And the daughters? Kim, Khloe, Kendall, Kylie, 4 sisters, 1 mother, and a network that allegedly facilitated encounters, managed other women, and walked away with millions. That's a devastating allegation, and it's one that's backed up by multiple sources. But here's what makes this even more damning. A victim complaint was just submitted in the Ghislaine Maxwell case, and it directly names the Kardashian sisters. Let me say that again slowly. An official victim complaint, now live on the Department of Justice website, names the Kardashian family as participants in a criminal enterprise. This isn't some random internet rumor. This isn't some baseless accusation on a podcast. This is a legal document. This is someone putting their name on the line and pointing the finger directly at one of America's most powerful families.
And Kim, Khloe, Kendall, Kylie playing a very specific role in Epstein's operation.
The complainant alleges that Ghislaine Maxwell had a close relationship with the Kardashian sisters and that they actively helped her use the victim's identity for fraud. Let that sink in. Identity theft. Not just allegations of being present at parties, but active participation in identity fraud. We're talking about eggs allegedly being used for pregnancies without consent, fertility exploitation, surrogacy fraud. This isn't just about who slept with whom. This is about a criminal enterprise that treated women's bodies as commodities. The filing even references a $600 million cosmetic deal tied directly to Kylie Jenner and questions whether that money was legitimate or if it came from stolen wealth. $600 million. That's not pocket change. That's not influencer money. That's the kind of money that raises serious questions about its origins. And now, according to the complaint, that money is being traced back to the same network that brought us Epstein's Island.
She turned them into what insiders are now calling experienced madames.
This is someone's real voice, someone who says they were victimized, someone who is asking for an investigation, and the mainstream media, they've barely covered it, because covering it would mean asking questions that powerful people don't want answered. Here's another angle nobody's talking about. Remember when we talked about Kourtney Kardashian being the only one whose name doesn't appear in any of this? Let's go deeper on that.
A victim complaint was just submitted in the Ghislaine Maxwell case, and it directly names the Kardashian sisters.
Kourtney Kardashian's name doesn't appear in any of the victim complaints, not in the island tapes, not in the allegations, not in the Epstein documents. And there are theories about why. Maybe Kourtney refused to participate. Maybe she saw what was happening and wanted no part of it. Maybe that's why she's always been the black sheep of the family, the one who distanced herself from Kris, the one who pushed back against the family's willingness to monetize a scandal. Or maybe Kourtney just got lucky. Maybe she was never asked. Maybe she was too young at the time the operations were running at full capacity. We don't know for sure, but what we do know is that her name isn't in these files, and that says a lot in a family where everyone else is named. The fact that one daughter is missing from these documents is significant. It's either proof of her innocence or proof of her smart.
I understand that she enjoys a close relationship with Kardashian sisters who helped her to use my identity, and there are rumors of using my eggs also to conceive.
Now let's talk about the money trail, because this is where it gets really interesting. The victim complaint mentions a $600 million cosmetic deal tied to Kylie Jenner, and there's speculation that this money might be connected to stolen wealth, possibly even tied to the $600 million that went missing from Britney Spears' estate. Now, I'm not saying Kylie Jenner stole money from Britney Spears. I'm not making that accusation, but I am saying the dots are starting to connect, and the pattern is disturbing. Lou Taylor, Britney's former business manager, the woman who allegedly orchestrated her conservatorship, the legal mechanism that basically enslaved Britney Spears for 13 years. Lou Taylor has been accused of financial exploitation for years. And guess where she was spotted recently?
Kourtney Kardashian's name does not appear in any of this. She's the only one who seemingly stayed out of it.
At Kris Jenner's birthday party, the same party attended by Bill Gates, Mark Zuckerberg, Prince Harry, Meghan Markle, and Jeff Bezos. A party that cost $6.5 million. Hosted at Jeff Bezos' $165 million mansion in Beverly Hills with a James Bond 007 theme. This wasn't a party, this was a gathering of the most powerful people on the planet. Now here's a question nobody's asking. Why would Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg, two of the richest men on the planet, two people who don't party with celebrities, two people who don't run in those circles, why would they show up to a Kardashian birthday party? They don't do celebrity, they don't do reality TV, they don't do the Kardashians.
Why would Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg, two of the richest men on the planet, show up to a Kardashian birthday party? They don't party with the Kardashians. They don't run in those circles. So why now? Why this year?
The internet has a theory, and honestly, it makes a lot of sense. A lot of people believe that this wasn't actually a party, it was a meeting, a secret gathering for everyone tied to Epstein's network, a way for them to check in on each other, make sure nobody's talking, and coordinate their legal strategies now that the files are starting to leak. And here's the kicker. This party happened just days after a new batch of Epstein emails dropped. Emails that mentioned a lot of the same people who were at Kris Jenner's party. Bill Gates was mentioned in those files. Mark Zuckerberg hasn't been named, but his presence at that party raises questions. Jeff Bezos has been mentioned in Epstein's flight logs. Prince Harry, well, his connections to Epstein have been widely reported. Let me be clear about something. I'm not saying everyone at that party is guilty of anything. I'm saying the timing is suspicious. I'm saying the guest list is revealing. And I'm saying that when powerful people gather in secret, just days after major document dumps, we should be asking questions. Now, let's connect this to Kanye, because everything Kanye West has been saying is starting to make perfect sense.
Kim Kardashian is a sex trafficker. Watch. Y'all don't believe me and just say I'm crazy.
Kanye West has been terrified for years. Terrified that Kris Jenner would do to his daughters north in Chicago what she allegedly did to her own daughters. He's been fighting to keep them away from Kris. He's been fighting to keep them away from Corey Gamble, Kris's boyfriend, who Kanye claims is CIA. He's been screaming from the rooftops that, and everyone called him crazy. But let's look at what Kanye actually said. According to a complaint obtained by People magazine, a former Yeezy employee claimed that Kanye instructed him to investigate the Kardashian family and their alleged criminal links, including Kanye recently doubled down and wrote, and I'm quoting directly here, Kim Kardashian is, watch, y'all don't believe me and just say I'm crazy. I put my life on the line that North's mother would never sell her tape.
Kim Kardashian is a sex trafficker. Watch, y'all don't believe me and just say I'm crazy.
This is a man who lost custody of his children. This is a man who was publicly mocked for years. This is a man who was called mentally unstable, bipolar, dangerous, and maybe he is some of those things, but maybe he's also telling the truth. Because here's what we know. Kris Jenner built her empire. That's how the family became famous. You know, that's how Kim became a household name, and now, according to the allegations, they've maintained that empire through something far more sinister. The parallels are damning. The pattern is undeniable.
The Kardashians built their empire on a sex tape, and now it looks like they maintain that empire through a sex trafficking operation.
And you know what? Maybe Kanye isn't crazy. Maybe he's just the only one brave enough to tell the truth. Or maybe he's a father who's terrified for his children and willing to destroy his own reputation to protect them. Either way, the things he said that made people laugh at him are now the things that are starting to show up in legal documents. Now, let's talk about Joe Rogan. We see Rogan going deeper than ever before into the Epstein files. And what he found connects perfectly to what we're seeing with the Kardashians.
My position on this completely shifted. I thought There's probably some really sick people that have an appetite for that, but I hadn't seen any real evidence for it until these files. And now they're like, oh, this is demonic. This is clearly demonic.
Rogan is not a conspiracy theorist. He's not some wild-eyed presenter looking for clicks. He's a comedian, a podcaster, a guy who hosts scientists and athletes and comedians. And when he tells you his position shifted, when he tells you he went from skeptic to believer, you need to pay attention. Because what Rogan saw in those files changed him. He spent time with the unredacted documents, or at least as unredacted as they would let him see. He saw what was hidden behind blacked out sections. He saw the names they tried to protect, and he came away disturbed.
We spent about 2 hours there, and we learned that 70 to 80% of the files are still redacted. In fact, there were 6 wealthy, powerful men that the DOJ hid for no apparent reason.
70 to 80% redacted. Let me say that again. In a release that was supposed to be transparent, that was supposed to finally bring justice to victims, 70 to 80% of the files were still hidden. And when Rogan and Congressman Thomas Massey pointed this out, the DOJ acknowledged their mistake, and now they've revealed the identity of these 6 powerful men. Who are they? Salvatore Navora, Zorab Mikoladze, Lipig Leonor, Nicolola Caputo, Sultan Ahmed bin Salam, and Leslie Wexner.
Leslie Wexner, who was labeled as a co-conspirator by the FBI.
Billionaire businessman, the man behind Victoria's Secret, the man who gave Epstein access to his money, his connections, his empire. Wexner hired Epstein to manage his money in the mid-1980s and granted him power of attorney, which is extremely rare for a financial advisor. The 2 men stayed in touch past Wexner's claimed cutoff date, and Wexner has been trying to remove himself from the Epstein narrative, but the reality is he made Epstein very rich. This is where it gets insane, because if Wexner was Epstein's banker, if Wexner was the money behind the operation, then we're not just talking about a ring. We're talking about an international financial network that moved money for the world's most powerful people. And that's exactly what Rogan said.
Jeffrey Epstein was texting with congressional delegate Stacey Plaskett while she was sitting in a congressional hearing with President Trump's former lawyer Michael Cohen in 2019.
Epstein was texting a congressional delegate during a congressional hearing. Let that sink in. While Stacey Plaskett was sitting in a hearing questioning Michael Cohen, Trump's former fixer, she was texting with Epstein in real time. They were coordinating. He was feeding her questions, and when the timestamps were analyzed, they matched perfectly with her questioning. This isn't just about powerful men having secret parties. This is about infiltration of the U.S. government. This is about someone who had enough leverage to text a congressional delegate during a hearing. This is about a network that had reach into the highest levels of American politics. Prince Andrew was at Epstein's island. Flight logs prove it, photos prove it, and Virginia Giuffre, a woman from the UK, claimed she was trapped by Epstein and Maxwell and forced to have sexual relations with Andrew on 3 occasions, starting when she was just 17 years old. She's under oath, she's willing to testify, and the royal family has never adequately explained their relationship with Epstein. But it's not just the royals. The files show both the British royal family and high-ranking politicians within the UK government were working with Epstein. Peter Mandelson, the former EU Trade Commissioner, was heavily implicated. Latest release of Epstein files uncovered photos of Peter Mandelson with no trousers on, with an anonymous woman, and also revealed the then business secretary and Labour MP leaked sensitive UK government tax plans to the convicted offender. Documents show multiple payments of thousands of pounds from Epstein to the former Labour spin doctor or his husband, one of which was after Epstein's 2008 conviction. This is after he was convicted, after he served his sentence, and politicians were still taking his money, still meeting with him, still working with him. And then there's the email about Bill Gates.
The one email
and we're here
that said that Bill Gates wanted to get from him antibiotics to give to Melinda because he got syphilis or he got something.
Damn.
The clap, chlamydia, whatever he got.
The email from Epstein suggested he helped Mr. Gates acquire drugs to deal with consequences of sex with Russian girls. He facilitated trysts for Mr. Gates with married women. Now, a representative of Gates says these claims are absolutely absurd and completely false. And maybe they are. Maybe this is just Epstein trying to flex, trying to sound important, trying to build his reputation as someone who has connections. But here's what Rogan said about that. Epstein clearly was some sort of a blackmailer. And this is an email that Epstein wrote, so it could be complete fiction. Epstein could have wrote that just to put pressure on Bill Gates for some business deal.
Epstein clearly was some sort of a blackmailer. And this is an email that Epstein wrote. So it could be complete fiction. Epstein could have wrote that just to put pressure on Bill Gates for some business deal. Like who? He could have spread rumors and then said that he'll squash those rumors. But these guys are dealing in deception and blackmail.
That's the key. Even if the specific allegations aren't true, the pattern is clear. Epstein was collecting information. He was building leverage. He was creating a network of people who had something to lose if the truth came out. And that's exactly what we're seeing with the Kardashians. Rogan believes Epstein was an intelligence asset, and he said, he very well could have been working for the CIA. He could have been a guy who was on his own, but also working with them, like a guy that they used, but they never fully endorsed like an asset, and a guy who could move money around. That's a massive statement, but it makes sense, because how else does a guy with no visible means of support have a private island, a private jet, access to the world's most powerful people? How else does he move between governments, royal families, billionaire businessmen, and politicians with such ease? The answer is he was working for someone, or multiple someones, and that's exactly what the Kardashian connection suggests. Now let's talk about the money, because the financial crimes are just as damning as the sexual crimes. In 2009, Kris Jenner founded the California Community Church. Members have to pay $1,000 a month, plus donate 10% of their income. And since the church is registered as a charity, Kris gets massive tax breaks every year. Meanwhile, those membership fees go straight into her pocket. This is textbook money laundering. It's the same playbook Epstein and Ghislaine used: hide criminal money behind charities, shell companies, and real estate deals. Kim Kardashian was recently caught listing the church as the beneficiary of her eBay charity auctions. Tax records show the church raked in nearly $45,000 from Kim sales alone, and that's just the small stuff. The pattern is undeniable. The family has been using their church, their charities, and their business ventures to move money for years, and now the question is, where did that money come from? What was the source of the wealth that built their empire? We already mentioned the $600 million Kylie Cosmetics deal, but let's go deeper. That deal valued Kylie Jenner at the time, a 21-year-old with no business experience, at $1 billion. Forbes called her a self-made billionaire. Then they took it away, revealing the numbers were inflated. The deal was largely based on her social media following, not actual revenue. Now, we're being asked to believe that same empire might be connected to stolen wealth, to money that came from Epstein's network. It's a lot to process, but the pattern is there. Now, let's bring this full circle, because here's what we know. The Department of Justice has a victim complaint naming the Kardashians. Joe Rogan has confirmed he's seen evidence tying them to Epstein's island. Kanye has been screaming the truth for years. Ray J has been warning everyone. And the next round of Epstein files is about to expose everything. Ray J has been talking about RICO allegations for months. And a RICO case is exactly what this is shaping up to be. We're talking about organized crime. We're talking about a network of people: Kris Jenner, Ghislaine Maxwell, Lou Taylor, Corey Gamble, and others working together to exploit women, launder money, and traffic people. The rain is coming. Here's where we're at. The Kardashians built their empire on scandal. They built it on controversy. They built it on selling their image, their bodies, and their souls for fame and money. And now it's all coming back to haunt them, because here's the thing. You can buy your way out of a lot of things. You can pay people to stay quiet. You can hire the best lawyers. You can control the narrative through your reality show and your social media empire. You can have your PR teams spin whatever story you want, but you can't buy your way out of federal crimes. You can't buy your way out of sex trafficking allegations. You can't buy your way out of RICO charges. You can't buy your way out of a victim complaint that's now on the DOJ's website. The next round of Epstein files is set to drop soon, and insiders are saying that the Kardashian names are going to be front and center. We're talking about flight logs. We're talking about witness testimonies. We're talking about financial transactions that link Kris Jenner and her daughters directly to Epstein's operation. And when those files drop, when the world sees what Joe Rogan has already seen, the Kardashian empire is going to crumble. Because here's what they don't understand. The elite protect each other until they don't. The moment someone becomes a liability, they cut them loose. And right now, the Kardashians are becoming a liability. This is the beginning of the end for the Kardashian empire. And honestly, it's about time. For years, they've profited from scandal. For years, they've used their platforms to normalize the normalization of the unacceptable. For years, they've hid behind fame and money and lawyers, but the law doesn't care how many followers you have. The law doesn't care how many PR teams you hire, and the law's coming.